It seems like we could potentially get to a point where these prescriptions will be able to be filed online. I mean, it certainly seems like it's trending in that direction
Oh
without a
yeah, you
reaction.
can. Right now, there companies exist where you see, like, remember when, remember when you could get like a medical card for marijuana online by
Right.
seeing it everywhere? Yeah,
Yeah.
now there's those services for these SSRI prescriptions. You go and have a 10-minute phone appointment with somebody and say you have anxiety and get this prescription. And a shocking percentage of women are now on these drugs,
Ugh.
in particular.
Hello, everyone. This is Tate Brown here, holding it down for Tim Pool. We have a great interview here with Naomi Best, who has done excellent work over the years exposing the leftist takeover of our psychiatric institutions here in the United States. In this interview, we get into the Minneapolis church shooter, we get into SSRIs, we get into the trans ideology broadly speaking. It's fantastic stuff. Please enjoy. RFK Jr., quote, "We are launching studies on the potential contribution of some of the SSRI drugs, some of the other psychotic drugs that might be contributing to violence." So with that, we're going to get into our interview with Naomi Best. Hey, Naomi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, Tate?
I am doing well. I just want to say before we get started, I mean, a lot of people probably know who you are, but maybe you could give a quick introduction for the viewers that don't.
Yeah, sure. So I am a former marriage and family therapy student at Santa Clara University, and I wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal about the ideological coercion that I experienced in that program. The whole field of therapy and psychology generally now, it has been captured by critical theory. So, you could describe that as critical social justice. I'm sure your audience is very familiar with it. But essentially, every class, every topic we discussed was in that frame. So, yeah, it really came to a head with the sexual issues. So I was in a course called Human Sexuality, and I was just very disturbed by the sexual ethic,
Hmm.
and also the notions about transgender care for youth in that class. So when I published my Wall Street Journal article, I actually got fired from my therapy internship.
Hmm.
And the director of the site actually said, you're really smart. I think you'd be a great therapist. You're really compassionate. But the junior therapists at that organization made there was such an uprising against me,
Hmm.
that it was not tenable for me to work at the organization. And I think that just goes to show how closed-minded, how narrow-minded the field has become, which is not going to bode well for people who need mental health care in this country.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I think the one thing that seems to be preeminent above anything else, as far as like the rhetoric coming specifically from the left after the shooting, is there's no introspection whatsoever on how we could be handling these types of people with these types of afflictions. There's just a doubling down every single time. And I'm just assuming you probably saw a lot of this when you were doing your work.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm thinking about the shooting, and I'm still processing all of this, it's just so disturbing.
Yeah.
But in my program, there was a persistent anti-Christian sentiment,
Mm.
especially in the sexuality class. We were asked to discuss how the Christian, they called it the Judeo-Christian ethic, the biblical reality, I would call it, that we're made male and female, has oppressed us in
Mm.
some way, and how we would act as agents of change to dismantle that binary.
Mm.
One
Wow.
one method they advocated for, can I swear? I assume I can swear.
Yeah, Ron Rumble. Yeah.
Was they advocated for something called gender fucking,
Okay.
which essentially is disrupting the binary on purpose. So a man
Wow.
wearing a dress with a beard, or it wasn't in the traditional understanding of gender dysphoria, somebody who truly believes they're the opposite sex and wants to live as the opposite sex, blend in, operate as a normal person. It was more of a social activist stance.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, that is how I was taught to become a therapist as well. Um, I actually got some pushback in that class for raising questions about transgender care for youth.
Hmm.
Um, I was asked to stop talking so much
Hmm.
because, I said that I wasn't comfortable providing these recommendations for children to go be put on puberty blockers or hormones. But the message was, don't be a gatekeeper, because if you are a gatekeeper, you are acting from a place of privilege,
Hmm.
and you are further oppressing this disenfranchised, marginalized group. And there is a lot of emotional manipulation that happens, because when you enter a therapy program, people enter therapy programs to help, to be compassionate. And there is now a generation of therapists who are being taught that the only way you are compassionate for these children is to affirm. And that comes down from every professional organization in the field right now.
Hmm. Yeah, well, we covered it earlier in the show, as we saw that Robert Westman changing his name to Robin, and we saw the paperwork filed, and he was a minor at the time, so that means that his mother signed off of it, and presumably within this transgender process, there would obviously be medical professionals involved. And I've seen some discussion, some dialogue online that Minnesota specifically is a haven for sort of these activist therapists, I guess, that you're referring to. I mean, do you have any insight specifically in Minnesota, or maybe how blue states are handling these issues?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can speak blue states more broadly. I know
Mm-hmm.
that Governor Tim Walz signed a sort of safe haven executive order for his state in 2023. But it's broader than that. It is it's from the American Psychological Association, which governs psychologists. I was in school to become a marriage and family therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So the organization that my recommendations come from is called the American Association of Marriage and Family Therapy. And if you look at their guidelines, there is no room for exploration for these kids, for what's going on. In fact, they call it, oh gosh, what conversion therapy. They call it
Mm.
conversion therapy, which is so ironic, right? Because this child, or this, youth, adolescent, whatever it may be, is transitioning to become the other gender, but saying, hey, let's figure out how you can live comfortably within your biological sex,
Mm.
is considered conversion. And it was just so disturbing. I'll give you one anecdote. I So in this lecture about transgender medicine,
Mm-hmm.
in my course, it was a transgender woman who was giving the presentation. Um, and she was saying that therapists act as sort of guides. They act not as medical professionals, but the lecture was framed as the transgender person is sort of going on this hero's journey. And the therapist would be a guide, but also these online communities are actively encouraged by the mental health professionals to sort of find a safe haven for these kids who may feel isolated, especially in cases where the parents aren't affirming.
Mm.
So they're being pushed into these echo chambers of activists. And I am just so concerned about the way that parents are both guilted. We've all heard the anecdote, if you do you want a trans daughter or a dead son?
Yeah.
But they're also just being excluded from the conversation. And not preemptively telling a client's parent that their child is claiming a transgender identity is just par for the course.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really concerned that people who advocate for more mental health services in the face of the gun control debate don't quite understand that the mental health industry is acting or is part of the pipeline of the medicalization of transgender youth.
Mm. Totally. I mean, well, yeah, we're seeing it as more information comes out along all the ways that we could have prevented this Robert Westman person from doing such a thing. It seems like there was multiple stopgaps that failed. Um,
Yeah.
Maybe you can elaborate more. Is there a way to mental health or a way out of this transgender issue? I mean, it seems like people's only answer is more therapy. Maybe try a different angle.
There are therapists who specialize, they call themselves ROGD therapists, rapid onset gender dysphoria. And anecdotally, they've had a lot of success, but they're sort of operating outside the bounds of the professional organizations, the professional guidance. Yeah, I mean, the incidence of comorbid mental health diagnoses for adolescents claiming a transgender ideology is just extremely high. It's 4 times that of the rate of
Wow.
somebody who doesn't identify
Hmm.
as a transgender person. So I'm not, as it stands right now, we are between a rock and a hard place because these people who have mood disorders, a lot of the times it's bipolar disorder,
Mm.
um, anxiety disorders, autism spectrum, neurodevelopmental disorders. They need real treatment.
Mm.
Especially, I'm concerned in the case of bipolar, because one of the hallmarks of a manic episode is this rash decision making, and
Mm.
also feelings of spiritual awakening, like finding one's true self.
Hmm.
um, I've spoken also to detransitioners who have autism spectrum disorder, and they said that they their lack of social skills made them feel as though, I'm not fitting in with the boys my age. I'm not acting like them.
Right.
Perhaps I can learn how to be a girl and apply those social skills in
Mm.
that area.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
as it stands, I don't know. I think that parents really need to interview any prospective therapist that they're going to bring their child to.
Hmm.
Um, Gone are the days of neutral mental health professionals that you can trust with your child in a private space for an hour every week. Um, a therapist needs to involve the parent at every step of the treatment, and having real open lines of communication between child, parent, and therapist is going to be crucial. And if there's any pushback from the therapist about, the importance of the confidential relationship between child and therapist, I would say, that's not a deal breaker, but it is a red flag.
Mm.
Um, Yeah, I'm sort of at a I'm sort of at a loss with the field, and it actually ended my career as a marriage and family therapist. I was pushed out
Mm.
because I refused to go along with this ideology.
Right. Well, I mean, let's put it this way: if Robert Westman was in your office, I mean, what would the Christian approach be to someone with these afflictions?
Yeah, gosh, I won't pretend to know how to treat somebody with these violent um, urges. I think with the transgender ideation, a deep understanding about the dissociation between oneself and one's body.
Mm.
I think that affirmative piece is really important because if somebody is saying that they're the opposite sex, they are in a tremendous amount of pain
Mm.
and disconnection from their own body. And I am a bit disturbed and disheartened hearing the discourse on the anti-transition side, the gender critical side,
Mm.
because um, every person is made in the image of God and
Mm.
deserves dignity. And I went into therapy because I believe that they deserve somebody to walk with them through their pain. But lying to somebody about the possibility of them actually becoming the opposite sex, in my view, is not compassionate
Mm.
whatsoever, and can lead them down a path of more confusion, more dissociation from their body. Um, I think it's unique for children too, because adults who transition, I think they have a better understanding that you can't achieve becoming the opposite sex.
Mm,
You can live life approaching something similar to the opposite sex.
hmm
I don't think many of these children who are being put on puberty blockers can conceptualize that it
mm,
is an impossibility.
hmm
And so WPATH, I'll mention this just for some statistics. WPATH is the thought leaders in this area, and the psychological associations reference WPATH. WPATH references the psychological associations. It's an issue,
mm,
but they don't even recommend any age restriction on puberty blockers. They say you can start at Tanner stage 2, which is when breast buds are first forming. So this is around age 8. And they also recommend, okay, the child has been socially transitioned for a period before they go on puberty blockers. So now what are we talking about? We're talking about age 7, age 6. At Santa Clara University, where I went, the school is placing therapy students, at an organization, a county center, where they are doing trans affirmative therapy for children as young as 5 years old.
wow.
Yeah, 5 years old. And, at this point, it is becoming a top down ideology that is being imposed on children.
Right.
Um, so is the answer more therapy? I don't think so. Not as it stands now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, and what you're kind of hitting on, and you did touch on it earlier, with the sort of rhetorical approach from the anti-trans crowd. I do get this sense of exasperation because on the conservative side, we've heard about the transgender issue for so long. We all
Yeah.
know that, the narratives, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, for the record, I think they're accurate. So I think we're getting to a point of sort of impatience on the right
Yeah.
because, like you mentioned, it appears to be top down. There is a sense of helplessness because anyone that goes into the mental health field to try and rectify the situation just gets pushed out. There does seem to be this growing exasperation with the LGBT movement, broadly speaking. So I mean, I'm sure you've seen a bit of that in your field, but I mean, I don't know. It does feel like I don't know. Maybe things are getting a bit. I don't know if desperate's the right word, but we're looking for more potentially large and wide spanning solutions for the issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at this point we have hit a tipping point
Hmm
um, in the culture. I think that at first, when the transgender issue was happening, and it was such rare cases, especially with children, and there was a feeling like, okay, we want to be compassionate towards these children,
hmm
but it seems that we've run the experiment and seen the rapid explosion of this
Yeah.
affliction in kids, to the point where parents, especially, are going to start being protective
hmm
of children. So I actually am hopeful that there will be some positive change
hmm
soon, pumping the brakes. But in these fields and bureaucracy, they move so slowly, and we need more therapists, more medical professionals who start speaking out against this, and offering different treatment approaches, which there's networks of this rapid onset gender dysphoria um, therapists who treat these kids, and like I said, they're having success. So yeah, I mean, I am hopeful that this will be a short-lived experiment,
mm
but I do understand the exasperation because it has gotten so extreme, and the real world consequences are so dire. I mean,
Right.
the amount of kids that this has already happened to, that we've allowed this to happen to, is unacceptable, and I think will go down as one of the greatest medical scandals,
Mm.
possibly ever,
Right.
because these are mentally afflicted children, who deserved better.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, well, speaking from the institutional side, is there any sort of mechanisms that maybe state governments can use to get the ball rolling in the right direction in these institutions, or is this more of a we're going to have to seek more like institutional recapture from the ground up?
Trump's executive order with the gender ideology in federal agencies, that might push the needle one way, but I think that in these blue states, I have a sense that the federal government is sort of abandoning them to their
Mm,
own devices. I mean, this clinic where they treat 5-year-olds, that's the Santa Clara County Behavioral Health
mm,
Department. So that's taxpayer money. But is Gavin Newsom going to sign a bill,
all right.
banning this
Yeah.
treatment for trans care? I don't think so. I think it's going to come down to the just a sense of illegitimacy of the professional bodies
Mm-hmm.
before there will be real change. The state of California licenses marriage and family therapists, and I think that there just needs to be more awareness that this industry is not a branch of healthcare. It is a rogue social project.
Sure.
And there's lots of right wing, not even right wing, but just like right leaning cultural right of San Francisco folks in
Yeah.
California
Yeah.
who just don't know that therapists have been so ideologically captured by this. So
Mm-hmm.
raising awareness is for sure going to be um, the first strategy. I also think that there's an impulse to outsource your child's mental health care to a professional.
Mm.
But I truly believe that your child's mental health, it has to start with you. It has to start with getting them off screens,
Yeah.
getting them exercise,
Yep.
getting them proper nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
getting them quality time with family. I know this is all easier said than done. My
Sure.
child is only 2. Um, but yeah, just sending them to a therapist, that's not going to cut it.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. I mean, and I mean, it needs to be reframed that way that there's, I mean, the amount of response, you get this sense now where the parents, even on our side of the spectrum, so to speak, are trying to outsource their children's upbringing to something, whether it be a device, whether it be the schools, whether it even be their churches. Sometimes it's like
Yeah.
the home ultimately is where the buck stops. There's another question I want to ask you. It's kind of back to the shooting situation.
Yeah.
Can you maybe expand or potentially, I don't know if speculate is the correct word, but maybe explain the medications that someone like this would be on that could potentially impair their thinking? Because a lot of people are speculating. RFK actually 30 minutes before said he's going to start investigating SSRIs as a potential trigger for these sorts of things, these actions. I don't know, as an expert, I mean, what impact do these medications have on these people?
Yeah, well, we know it's very well documented that when SSRIs are prescribed to young people in particular, it can increase suicidal ideation as well as aggression. That's
Mm,
not debated. That's on the label.
right.
So there's also been concurrently a push for general practitioners to be prescribing SSRIs
Wow.
as a first line of treatment for
Wow.
anxiety and depression.
Wow.
Yeah, so now you can go to a general practitioner, I don't know when the last time you went to a doctor is, but generally they're like 15-minute
Right.
appointments. They will, you can write a questionnaire or fill out a questionnaire, and if you meet a certain criteria of depressive symptoms, you can walk away with a prescription. um,
Mm,
I don't know if this person was on any psychotropic medication. um, it's probably likely.
hmm
And I'm not going to draw the correlation between SSRIs and mass shootings. A lot of people speculate on that. I truly don't know.
hmm
But I can say that it increases suicidal ideation
mm,
for adolescents.
mm. I mean, that's shocking. I mean, it seems like we could potentially get to a point where these prescriptions will be able to be filed online. I mean, it certainly seems like it's trending in that direction with
Oh
high
yeah, you
reaction.
can. Right now, there companies exist where you see, like, remember when Remember when you could get like a medical card for marijuana online by
Right.
seeing a doctor? Yeah,
Yeah.
now there's those services for these SSRI prescriptions. You go and have a 10-minute phone appointment with somebody and say you have anxiety and get this prescription. And a shocking percentage of women are now on these drugs,
Oh.
in particular
Mhm.
women. Um, but yeah, for children, it just it should not be a first line treatment. It should not.
Mm. I mean, I talked about it on the show yesterday when I went live yesterday. There was virtually zero information on the shooting beyond the, we had a general idea of the loss of life.
Yeah.
And I had said that I think the biggest what you're noticing in America, you're noticing this palpable instability. You're feeling it off of people. You're sensing off of people a sense of instability, and that people
Yeah.
are just snapping. And also, you're sensing this deep void inside of people that they're searching for something. Personally, I think that's Christ. And it seems like these SSRIs are able to effectively zombify them, where they don't even have to think about these things. I mean, I know that's a bit, you know, you know, hardcore, but maybe you can expand a little bit on what these drugs specifically do to people.
Yeah, well, so they're serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So essentially, they allow more serotonin to float around in your brain. That used to be the theory used to be that there was a lack of serotonin for people who were depressed. That turned out to be completely bunk.
Hmm.
So the exact mechanism is how these drugs treat depression is sort of unknown. And there's also just very shaky evidence that they work for moderate depression. Um, so I think that we don't quite know what we're doing with the drugs.
Hmm.
And that is especially concerning for people who are underage,
Hmm. Hmm.
who get on these drugs at while their brain is still developing. It is extremely difficult to get off of these drugs. There's all sorts of quasi withdrawal symptoms. There's brain zaps. So that's a feeling like your brain, it's sort of like like electrostatic in your brain.
Hmm. Hmm.
Feelings of depression, feelings of meaninglessness, jitteriness. It's a long-term medication, and
Hmm.
it's not meant to be something that you get off of. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that again, it's coming down to a cultural problem
Hmm.
with such lack of meaning. Like you said, maybe it's God, and the SSRIs are sort of numbing that feeling of meaninglessness that's happening. But our current culture is certainly not conducive to positive mental health.
Hmm. I mean, that's just really grim stuff. Oh man, well I hate to end on that note. We are running out of time. I have so many questions on this kind of stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's just it's fat, and it's something people don't really think about as much, but it's something that's has such a massive role in people's lives, especially with the SSRIs and stuff. But I mean, you talk about it all the time. Where can people find you to get more?
Yeah, you can find me on X. My handle's Naomi Epps Best, or just search Naomi Best. And I
Mm.
also have a Substack where I write about these things, Naomi Epps Best.
All right. Well, Naomi, thank you so much. This was really insightful. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Take care. Oh, right. Well, that was Naomi Best. That was really good. That was really insightful. I mean, there's obviously there's a lot of people speculating, a lot of policies proposed on Twitter, these sorts of things, which a lot of them, would be conducive to success in a lot of cases. It's nice to get someone that can break down the nitty gritty, someone that can break down the mechanisms that are at work, at play. She's fantastic. She was on Culture War. It was probably a few weeks. It was about a month and a half ago with Dr. Drew and Dr. Chloe Carmichael. I would recommend taking a look at that, where she really expands on the ideological capture within the psychology, world of psychiatry, psychology, et cetera, et cetera. It's terrifying stuff, and it's not really being talked about. It's not really being talked about enough. So it's really a relief to see RFK, that soundbite from RFK before we went live. about the contribution of SSRI drugs to violence. I think we need a deep dive on that. We need a study on that. That's absolutely integral to solving this issue. But with that, I got to end here. We will be back tonight live on Timcast IRL at 8 p.m. I believe Mike Benz is holding it down. I think he's going to be the guest host tonight. He'll be holding it down. It'll be a great show. You want to be there for that. I've been your host, Tate Brown, holding it down for Tim Pool. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Real Tate Brown. Come give me a follow there. I'm confident Tim's going to be back Monday, so this will be the last time you see me for a while. Hopefully, knock on wood, the last time you see me for a while. So I really appreciate you guys watching and supporting. I've received a lot of kind words, which really mean a lot. It's been wild, filling in here. It's like it's had minimal experience beforehand, anything camera related or presenting the news. So it's been great to be able to sort of share ideas and go create a conversation with you guys. So really grateful for that. Hopefully you'll be seeing Tim here on Monday. I'm quite confident of that. So follow me on Instagram, X. Be here for Timcast IRL tonight. And thanks for watching.